So we just came back from our quick lightning trip to Cedar Point. Lightning trip is like a day and a half. And we had not been in 5 years exactly, maybe a little bit more, like 5 years and like 3 weeks. Surprisingly, we had that much of a gap between our visits. And of course, the main reason for visiting was Simon's Curse. And to be honest, when it was announced, of course I was excited because it's a new Tacoma, but was I kind of thinking like, I'm not sure if this is what the park needs? Yeah, that definitely came through my mind a couple times. But at the end of the day, actually riding it and then riding every other coaster at the park except for the two kiddie coasters made me realize that it really is a good fit. And I think Alex kind of helped me in appreciating the fit better.
I mean, I was just excited because I just wanted this coaster so badly for any park in the United States and for it to be open. So for me, it was like, well, Cedar Point is as good a park as any. But then being there, it's like, no, it does make sense. It's sort of like, well, what do you get for the person who has everything? It's like, well, what kind of coaster do you build at a park that has every coaster? And like, this works. There's the tilt coaster. It's like you come for the tilt, but you really stay for the rest of the layout because what the ride chooses to do with its momentum is so different than what any other ride at Cedar Point does with its momentum. The ride that it's most similar to, I think, is Maverick because those are two rides that don't really concern themselves too much with inversions. Despite being looping coasters, there's a lot more going on with their elements respectively and some kind of like oddball acrobatic stuff. But then, I mean, anyone who's ridden both rides will tell you that the rides are so different. And
yeah, you know what? I think my biggest main concern was like, all right, well, do we need high-speed rolls? Do we need high-speed inversions? Do we need little hops of airtime on a steel coaster? Because that's exactly what Maverick does. But then, of course, Vekoma execution is so different, and having the tilt elements for a park like Cedar Point, if you always need to have something that's marketable, just to set it aside from all the other coasters in the park, the tilt was a good mechanism for that, quite literally. But then I think the rest of the layout really carries the ride, which we'll discuss that in a little bit more in today's episode.
Did you know that it was actually for Energylandia? Everybody knows that it was in Mexico for a while, but Mexico was actually its second location prior to being assembled. Cedar Point was actually its third park, just the first park where it made it past the laying in pieces stage.
And a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And listening to another episode of
Coaster Kings Radio.
And today's episode is all about Cedar Point, which I'm sure everyone loves Cedar Point.
Everybody
and I love
loves
Cedar Point
Cedar
more
Point.
now than I love Cedar Point before.
I think I do too.
Because I think a lot of people know that we've been kind of Cedar Point critics for a while. There's even trips where we just like dip Cedar Point early and drove to Kings Island and spend like an extra day at Kings Island.
We've done that more than once.
Yeah, so like I feel like people know
offenders.
that we're not the biggest. And then we were like invited on the on like another podcast, the Park Peeps podcast, and we were kind of discussing the fact that I think the Cedar Point lineup was overrated and whatnot. And while I maybe still stand by that because people still discuss it as like the coaster mecca in the world, I have much more appreciation for Cedar Point. Despite our days being a little bit messy, and we'll get into that, but I do have much more appreciation for Cedar Point now than ever before. And I think Alex and I were driving to some Taco Bell that was honestly kind of terrible, by the way. Don't go to the Taco Bell in South Sandusky, just for the record.
Yeah.
It was very terrible. But we were driving there because there was like nothing open. And this was after our first day at the park. And we're kind of talking like, well, how is it that we feel so differently about every ride here than we did in our last visit? And then we realized that in the meantime, we have traveled so extensively in the last 5 years between all these parks that we've done out for Europe and the UK, and then, of course, all our parks in China and then Taiwan and Singapore, wherever we've been, And then we realized our perspective is just very different. But I think that actually is for the best. I think now we can appreciate Cedar Point in ways that maybe I didn't appreciate it before. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I still feel like a lot of my opinions of the park are the same, especially in the context of like Six Flags Magic Mountain and how everybody loves to say that Cedar Point is like better than Magic Mountain in every measurable capacity. And like now more than ever, I would say that that's not true. Um, but really, what has changed the most about Cedar Point, quite simply, is just the ride roster, and that the coaster lineup for them has been trending up really nicely with
True.
the 3 changes to their lineup that they've made since our last visit in 2020. For 3
Yeah, I
very
guess it is
different ride
true
experiences.
because there's 3 different ride experiences and actually 2 physical new credits, or like I guess for me they're all credits, but 2 physically new construction coasters that were added to previously non-coastery plots.
I mean, we did lose
Since our
Wicked
last
Twister,
visit.
which was a shame. Technically,
Yeah, but it was already gone last visit, right?
Was it?
Yeah,
I don't even remember.
I think it was. Yeah, because during COVID, we posted that video of it, like
Being
of the construction
demolished.
of it, like falling apart.
Yeah.
And that was pretty well.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, anyway, so it was our first time with all those new rides, and of course, having a ride like Top Thrill 2 and having a ride like Siren's Curse, those 2 are such powerhouse additions to your lineup, even if one is a replacement of like a very similar product. And then the Wild Miles, I think, was cute, and it's a really nice fit for that area of the park, which then the area of the park got such a glow up too, that even though Wild Miles as a ride is not all that, I mean, I don't have much of an opinion on it, but what it did for the area is very nice, because now from Gatekeeper to Wild Mouse, it's one really nice, consistent themed area in a way that Cedar Point has always kind of struggled. I think like the Frontier area in the back of the park is like what was previously the only thing that really kind of worked for me, and the rest of the park was just, I don't know, like very Cedar Fair, very just kind of thrown together, polished, but not exciting, not very well themed, just very point blank. And now having the boardwalk, I think looks really good. I think it's that and the Frontier, like the 2 areas of the park, in my opinion, that actually have an identity and look very nice.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some parts of the park that just are still very like Cedar Fair-y. They don't. Things are also just look nicer than I remember. There's been an eagerness to landscape certain areas. The boardwalk area is the best example, but I think the main midway looks really nice these days. I think the Gemini midway is still really cute, even though it's like kind of been the least touched up of all of the area. That area really feels like classic in a way, because it hasn't seen a lot of changes in the last 10 years.
Well, with the string lights and stuff, that's very much like that era of Cedar Fair where they were doing it to Carowinds, Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah. It was when they added
King's
Pipe
Dominion.
Scream. When Pipe Scream was the last thing that happened to that midway, and that was when the string lights came, the like Knott's Berry Farm boardwalk era string lights. And so not much of that area has changed since. I love that. Something about that area being like in the shadow of Gemini is so cute to me. There's something about it that feels very like nostalgic in a way. It seems like the area of the park that has changed the least in recent years. I guess maybe the entrance plaza, that would be a more accurate statement, but I don't know. There's just something about the Gemini Midway. I feel like it's just so far away in the back there. I think it's also like the area of the park that coaster enthusiasts will spend the least amount of time. So like when I'm there, it feels kind of novel. Like I want to soak it in while we're there. Because there's really only just Gemini and the kiddie coasters and like, some flat rides. There's not a lot going on in that area of the park that enthusiasts are sticking around for. It's all about like the Dragster Midway, with its 3 or 4 coasters and like the 2 major e-ticket coasters in the back of the park, and then like the Frontier Trail stretch of like Millennium Force and Siren's Curse and Rougarou, and then like the front of the park where everything is like really dense, and then Gemini Midway is just this like very mild, kind of sparse little area that's just about vibes and like one major coaster.
So what we'll do is we'll discuss our days at the park, which we did 2 days, really a day and a half, but we showed up around maybe like 1:30 on day 1. Long story short, it was like a crazy way of us getting there, and I'm kind of amazed that it worked out, because for a second it was kind of looking like we weren't going to make it to this trip when we got stuck in this like weather in Atlanta.
Weather was really bad.
Which Atlanta was already like the backup plan to the original plan.
Yeah.
So it was like things just were not working great. And then eventually we still made it to Cleveland like in the middle of the night. But then we had to sleep for a
We
little
slept
bit
in.
because we both
We really
but we have both been up for a very, very, very long time.
we gave ourselves
So,
permission to just
yeah.
show up at like 2. We got there at 1:30 actually on the first day.
Yeah, it's actually pretty amazing that we beat ourselves because
and we had
I thought
plenty.
2 o'clock
We had
was
plenty of
optimistic.
time. Like but based on how the second day ended up going, we were like, we did so much more than we had originally planned on doing. Like we didn't plan on riding every coaster, but we did.
Well, it was especially because like on day 1, we were kind of presented a kind of a rough go at
the
it.
weather
So,
was
like,
really nasty. I was like, oh my
didn't
God, everything's going to be closed.
expect day 2 to be that much better. Yeah. So day 1, of course, we came with Science Curse. So we got to the park and we went straight to Science Curse. And
Top
that
Thrill
made the most
2 was
sense.
also a priority, but I don't think it was running in that particular moment. It went down at least twice, just in the
because
afternoon
it was
that
just
we were
before
there.
2 p.m. when we got to the ride, and then they told us, 2 p.m. you can buy a fast lane, individual fast lane. And we're like, oh, okay, no brainer. As soon as 2 p.m. hits, we'll buy it and we'll just ride it and get the credit. That's like just important,
And it's, for the record, it's $30 a pop, so like $60 for 2 people, which is steep, but we got lucky because the team member there, they were having some sort of technical issue with the scanner, so he just pushed us through. So we still had 2 valid passes for it after we rode. So we rode again, and like I still don't even know if they were accepted the second time. But after the second time, I was
I
like,
don't know what happened with technology.
I was
because
like,
we bought
okay,
it and waited and told us to buy it.
The scanner kept saying like no, like not valid, and then the team member both times the team member was like, okay, you're good, and we're like, okay,
are we good though?
So we ended up getting buy one get one rides on Science Curse with the $30 pass, and like who knows, that might work out for you as well. Because by all accounts, I don't know if that system is actually optimized to accept the single shot passes because they're not super well advertised.
And we really kind of didn't want to skip the ride because the lines on day 1 were actually not great. They were, even though the crowd level wasn't that high, I will say that about half the rides were down for pretty much the whole day. Maybe a couple opened like the last hour or so, the park operation. And then a lot of stuff was only running 1 train, and a follower commented that it likely had to do with the wind, which, of course, Cedar Point's very prone to that, just because they wanted to make sure every ride was going to be, like, completely full trains, so that, like, it wouldn't actually, valley. But that meant that there would be, like, insane lines. Like, Magna would not even have that many people in the queue, but it'd be, like, a 45-minute to an hour queue. Millennium Force was on 2 trains, and that line was actually not even that bad. It was 30 minutes. But it was just stuff like that it was like, all right, so even though a lot of rides are closed and then a lot of rides are limited capacity, now you have a not so busy late summer weekday that's turning into very long wait times, which maybe we weren't expecting. We were expecting the crowd calendar is like mega green, like it's light, like should be best day to go. This was actually a day that we had planned almost all summer. Like, you know what, we can push to the end of summer because the kids are back in school in Ohio on Wednesday, and on Thursday we'll go to the park because they're still open for weekdays for like the last week. And then the crowd calendar says it should be the best day ever to go. So like this, we actually really had planned these 2 days quite far in advance, even though we kind of had to make shift how we're going to get there because that was kind of a problem.
It was so weird that like, the lack of crowds, like the noticeable lack of crowds on Thursday was still no match for how, I don't want to say badly operated the park was, but just like relative to staffing and how they run the park on like a super low attended day, that the busier day was the better day with shorter lines on more rides. Like
because day 2 was like night and day.
It was like 2 different parks.
3 trains on everything.
Yeah.
That could run
3 trains on Rougarou.
6 trains on Maverick.
For no reason. Like,
and the lines were short. They were sending out trains at pretty decent intervals. It just felt like that's the Cedar Point you expect. Cedar Point is like, let's push those trains out. Like, we're a roller coaster culture. But on the first day, I was
on
like,
Thursday,
this is literally worse than Magic Mountain.
What is going on at this park? Like, only
there's so much closed.
A very short list of rides could be said were operating at their top potential. Really just like the big, like 6, like Siren's Curse, Gatekeeper, Valraven, Top Thrill 2, Steel Vengeance, and Maverick, and then everything else in the park was like either not open or doing like one train operations on like huge rides, like like Maverick, or like 2 train operations on rides like Millennium Force.
Oh, Magnum, you mean?
Or on Magnum, 2 train operations on rides that should be running 3, and 1 train operations on rides that should be running 2, and turning the
and
whole
then,
wait
late at
experience.
night, eventually some of these rides reopen, and it's like, oh, now we're on 1 train on Raptor, but the whole park wants to go by Raptor because it hasn't been open in the last 9 hours.
Very unpredictable.
And now it's 1 train.
Crowd patterns.
Stuff like that was just weird. And with the intermittent rain and weather, it just made the first day kind of awkward. But the highlight of day 1 was, of course, the tuning credit. So let's just dive right into that.
So day 1 did end up working out.
I think Alex is the bigger fan.
I think,
it did work out. It was good.
Siren's Curse.
Still, I mean, it wasn't great, but it was good.
The long short of it was that Siren's Curse was not as intense as we were expecting. I was still really 100%. Happy with like a vast majority of the experience, but I think for you, the lack of intensity was a bigger point deduction than it was for me.
Yes. So I remember, Alex, we came back to the break run, and you were like, "Wow, that was absolutely great." I remember thinking, like, "Oh shit!" Like I really want to love this ride. Like, this is what I came here for. This is what I was expecting to love. And the Chinese Vekoma modern loopers we've done, like Fighter Jet and Jungle Dragon, were those were so intense. They're so insane, out of control with the pacing, that I was like, "Oh man." Like, this was it, like it was good, but it wasn't like the Vekomas that the Vekoma I thought I was going to ride.
Part of the problem was,
in my opinion, it changed over time, but
we did our front seat ride, which I already heard like pretty mixed things about riding in the front seat. So I knew that was where we would want to start. And then the rest of our rides would all be in the back, because everyone said that the back is better. But we got our front seat ride, and it was nice. And then every other ride got steadily better. It trended up for us. It was definitely a grower, but also a ride that we kind of expected to have, like, to leave a stronger first impression, regardless of how much it would grow in our interests as we kept riding it. So,
and I do think this is like a problem that I struggle with a lot, is that I'm so excited for a ride that I go into it expecting it to be something that is probably not even realistic. But I thought for this one, I had a pretty accurate understanding of what I could expect based on our experiences on the Chinese new Vekomas. But like Alex said, doing the front row first, I think, was actually maybe good, because then every ride trended up after that, because then we just, we rode in the back the 3 more times. And the tilt coaster, let's face it, in the back is just better. Like, you're on the top of the tilt. The track connection part to me isn't scary or that thrilling. Being a front row, like, of course, that's cool to see. But for me, I'm not like that, like maybe the general public or some people are like really like, oh my God, the track is disconnected, like that's maybe like really a thing. But for me, I'm like, okay, like it's just a roller coaster technology. It's cool. But what matters for me is that first drop in the back. It's like you really have like a lengthy vertical drop, almost like GIB, like it's just like a jib.
Yeah.
And then you go into that turn, and then the layout itself is of course really good. But I do think in the back, it's better. And also why I think it's better in the back is because there's several moments on the ride where you get pretty much or like in a half loop drop. It happens twice on the ride. And because you do that twice, that's an element is better enjoyed in the back. You get whipped around that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think anyone listening, if you have a choice, just do back row. I think that is a much better
You're also going to have a much
Yeah.
easier time, because technically they assign rows, but they assign front to back. Getting the front seat ride took a little bit of begging.
Yeah, it was a bit of a process.
But getting a back seat ride is no problem, because people will never, like, the average visitor won't request the back. They'll request the front, if anything, or they won't request anything.
Yeah, there's of course a bunch of coaster nerds there too, but just the back seems to be
nice
easier to get
as long as they load front to back. That last row is always yours to ask for. As long
also
as
with the
somebody
back,
else
I feel like it's
hasn't
one of those
asked.
things where, like, if you take row 11 versus row 12, it's very
I
similar
really like
experience.
row 11 too. Yeah.
As where if you're in row 1 is row 1.
Yeah.
Like
Row
if you're going to
two
be
is
row
not
2,
as
it's just
good.
not the same experience.
Yeah, back car, or just as far back as you can go. if you don't want to wait another train, or if you don't get given the option to wait another train, just sitting as far back as possible on that ride will beseech you, because it's definitely a backseat ride.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing I enjoyed a lot about the layout is that it is very varied. It throws some inversions at you. It has, like good airtime hills, like tiny little hops. It does a lot, and of course it feels much like a signature for Coma, and it's not as intense as some of the other ones that we've done. I still think it's a really cool ride, and it's unlike the tilt coaster of the past, which is of course Gravity Max, which we discussed a couple episodes ago, where we talk about the original tilt coaster, kind of in anticipation of our visit to Cedar Point, really. Mm-hmm. The ride is mostly just a drop and then like a vertical loop and a helix, and that's because back then the tilt was the ride, like that was the focus. In this day and age, you need more than the gimmick, and luckily the gimmick is almost to me like the afterthought. Like I enjoy the drop, and I think it's really cool, and about the onboard audio with the drop, and like it really is a nice product. But the rest of the ride is like, wow, okay, this is good. Like there's much more to the ride than just the drop. And in fact, for me, I think the tilt is not even the best part of the ride.
Yeah,
would you agree?
I love the audio. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my favorite aspects of the ride. I love that everything is like this very scenic and it's like scene setting audio with like mermaids and the sound of waves crashing, the creaking of the tilt mechanism as it dumps you, and then it kicks in.
The part where like, yeah, exactly, yeah,
and then you drop and it kicks into this great like electric guitar breakdown, where it's just a solid 60 seconds of like heavy metal guitar. And I was like, oh, this was made for me. Like I am the target audience for this, because I was like, maybe that was part of the reason I think I was so tickled, because I just didn't expect to care about the onboard audio, and it ended up being an aspect of the ride that like really entertains me, like really made me feel thrilled by the hype of it.
Yeah, no, the audio is almost like an extra dimension, because they really did do a good job where like the sirens speak to you, and then you hear like the seagulls and it's kind of like oceany sounds, and then when the actual tilt happens, it has that cranky noise. And then, like kind of mysterious speaking, and then you drop it, like Alex said.
She does
give
you a warning,
like,
and I think
medley.
That's important for like the comfort aspect of the average rider, with the audio letting you know when you're going to drop, because it's already like very intense for people. It's already and I think people having the opportunity to like brace for the drop is something that the onboard audio gives them. One of our rides did not have audio, so we were like hanging up there, and then we dropped, and it was way scarier than any of the other rides that we had, because there was no warning.
That's the one thing. And when we first rode it, I was kind of hoping that it would just make that like cranky noise and then just like kind of let you hang there. But then she's like, "Oh, you will soon meet your death." I think she says.
Yeah, she says something right before. The audio makes it very clear when you're about to drop. And then on the ride that we had no audio, I like hit the back of the head, and I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't ready.
I didn't realize that.
I wasn't ready." And then I was like, "That's why they have that in the audio," because I was like way more startled by the drop on that third ride.
Because part of the thrill of the original in Taiwan is that when you do hang there and you're so high up, the anticipation factor, and this like, oh my God, I just think it's like some of the best, maybe the best of it is like the thrill of just hanging there high in the sky, just waiting for it to just release.
And it feels a little sketchy.
And it feels a little sketchy. Of course, this one is like modern age. This one is modern age, butter smooth for Coma. But yeah, the old one does feel a little bit sketchy. Like, you kind of hold on to the restraint, like, you put your head against, because you're going to be going at a turn.
The OG, when I wrote it a long time ago, I remember being scared. Like the tilt aspect of it was terrifying. This time on Siren's Curse, I didn't feel scared by it at all. I felt like it was way less intimidating, for a variety of reasons. The drop is not as big as Gravity Max. Because Gravity Max, of course, is quite tall, and then you go underground. The whole like lead up to it just felt a lot more like comfortable. Like the ride is almost like the audio is like trying to coddle the rider a little bit and comfort you in relation to like what you're about to experience, so that it's not super traumatizing. Versus with Gravity Max, it's like, oh, good luck. you dispatch and that's it.
And if anyone's hearing a bunch of screaming in the background, I'm so sorry. There's like some crazy screaming going on right outside this window of where I'm recording.
It's the siren's curse.
And I can't make it any more quiet. It's the siren's curse. It's actually just like probably like some spoiled child.
It's the toddler's curse.
I know.
I don't know. Is it?
Like,
it probably won't pick that up.
Somewhere else.
Do you think it'll pick that up with the noise? Your noise?
Well, if it did, guys, I apologize. I tried my best making this like a soundproof room today, and it's not always. Do
you have your window open?
Yeah, but it has like, because it's like Bay Area summer, so I don't really need I don't have like an AC in here. But it's like a fan. It's like mounted into the window.
Is recording from his little bungalow in San Jose, and I'm recording in Florida.
Yeah, we actually both left this morning from Cedar Point and went in different directions.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm in a different place and we're recording in a different sound environment. Anyway, if you do hear kids, sorry about that. We're just making it happen as we go. But yeah, so overall, I do appreciate Siren's Curse. I think the theming is actually better than I expected because I don't think anyone really thinks of Cedar Point as theming anything.
It's a lot of little details.
This and having like little ponds of water and having the supports being painted to either be seaweed or being rust, depending on whether they're in the water or whether they're on land. Doing the whole shipping container thing. Honestly, it works pretty well. And I know they were probably kind of desperate to make it work somehow because they plopped in this ride that they just needed something that was going to be thrilling, marketable, and also reliable. And like putting the Vekoma Tilt Coaster in there is all three of those. And so I think they just really needed to make it work. And I think that was why they did it the way they did, especially because it sits so close to the service road right where the marina is.
Yes.
I think incorporating that theme into it then helps with it being like on the road and then like a few inches from the actual marina. It just works. It doesn't seem as like forced.
They've never built a ride this close to the marina before. So they're kind of leaning into it. They're leaning into the local color, leaning into like maritime theming, which is something that they haven't done a whole lot of at Cedar Point. Cedar Point it's always been about things that are either very abstract, like building a ride like Magnum XL200 or Millennium Force, where the theme is like kind of fill in the blank, like it's really just an aesthetic, or it has a Wild West theme related to like the back of the park, or it's just like mythical creatures, general traditional amusement park theming. To me, this feels like the first time that they've ever concerned themselves with theming a ride to like the local, something that is like you're on Lake Erie, like that's what this ride is about. Like it's like it's haunted. It's about boat travel. It's about freight. It's about cargo freight on Lake Erie. Like that's actually something very interesting. And like maybe we may see the lake liners. We might see more of that in the future of like the park kind of reinvesting in its own like geo-commercial history as a source material for ride theme and experiences and stuff. I do think the park has some really exciting things in the future. We don't know what they are yet, but we'll talk about like our hypotheses based on like all of the land that they have that's like primed for development. But anyway, we should probably do it. Is there anything else you want to say about Siren's Curse right now?
No, I think Siren's Curse is a good fit for the park. It turned up for me. I liked it better in the back. It is not crazy intense, but you know what? If you need crazy intense inversions and snappy moments, then you can always get that on Maverick. So in a way, it actually works that it is so different, and it doesn't not run like Fighter Jet. Because Fighter Jet, I think, almost runs like a Vekoma version of Maverick. Yeah. So anyway, having said that, I think it actually is a much better fit than I thought it would be. Right. And I was excited to ride it a couple times, and it sits pretty high. And I think we'll talk about our overall rankings at the end of the episode. I like doing that. So what did we do next? Can you remember?
We went to Top Thrill 2. Remember. That was the other.
Of course we did.
Once we did. Like by the time we were done with Siren's Curse, Top Thrill 2 had opened, so we went there next, and got that sorted out. And like we ended up riding it 3 times. We got a front ride, a middle ride, and a back ride. It's another backseat ride. Cedar Point is just filled with rides that are backseat rides, but there's some front seat rides too. I think Magnum might be a front seat ride. I really enjoyed our front
Gatekeeper
seat
is
rides.
both the front seat and the back seat, right?
Gatekeeper, every
Anyway,
seat is good.
so Top Thrill 2. So this is one of those rides that I was actually blown away by. Original Top Thrill Dragster didn't necessarily do a whole lot for me. I didn't love the
Because you
trains
rode
that
King
much.
Ka the week before. You got your
and
you
I
got
liked
your
Ka better.
you got your
Rest in
Stratocoaster
peace.
credits the same week.
Yeah, and I liked Ka better.
And you
I
rode
just
Ka
thought Ka had
first,
more
and
of a
that was
power to it.
Yeah,
and had that airtime hill at the end. And on a coaster that doesn't really do much for launch and then put you back down to the ground, having an extra airtime hill was an extra element to me. And I did feel that the launch was just noticeably faster in Ka. So for me, Top Thrill Dragster was never really an important thing. Like, we only really rode it if it was open and the line wasn't crazy. Other than that, I just didn't really care for it as much personally. However, that only made the thrill of Top Thrill 2 even better for me. Because when we did ride Top Thrill 2, I loved the trains. They were comfortable. They were spacious. I could stretch my legs. And I'm a tall person, so that's nice. The lap bars are hydraulic, but they're, like over the shoulder lap bars. So they felt really comfortable. And then it tracked a little bit like Ka. Like, there was definitely a bounce to it, but it wasn't like super insane. But I feel like a healthy level of vibration actually adds to the element of craziness, does it not?
Yeah, it definitely.
I feel like if you're blasting at that speed and you're vibrating and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy.
You're going so fast that you're like jittering, and it's like, okay, I'm okay with that. That's part of the charm cool. of Furious Baco, another one of our favorites.
100%.
Part of the charm.
And then having that backwards launch go up to what was like 101 miles per hour, I think.
Yeah.
And then you shoot up the tower and then realizing, oh wow, this is like a completely, like, this is like an added element to the ride. Of course it's an added element, but like, it really feels like the ride has like two, 3 times as much going for it now.
Yeah.
And then looking down at all the people and actually being able to appreciate the downward view for twice as long, or not just spiraling down. You actually like looking down at the park and the Cedar Point and Lake Erie and whatnot. Really cool, because when you do that traditional spiral down, you have a quick few seconds to look at the park, but then you're just spiraling down and that's it. But now you could really appreciate how high up you are for a longer time, because you're facing down for like the whole way up and the whole way down, of course. So that was like a nice, almost like Superman in Magic Mountain. That's unfortunately closed now. Rest in peace as well. I thought that facing down was like so cool.
Yeah.
And having that now on this ride was really cool.
It's magnificent. It is a truly spectacular experience that I think has been elevated in a lot of ways with the remodel.
And you say that it runs fast over the top hat now, right?
Yeah, it hauls ass over the top of that thing, because I didn't realize how big of a difference it would be. I really feel like the ride is faster. Like, I know they say that it's still 120, like that's still the top speed, but then I cannot believe how violent the transitions are going up the top hat and down. Like, that first quarter twist into the top, like, I thought my spine was going to break in half. Like, it was so violent and so sharp. It's like that moment when you, on the second launch on Maverick, where you take off and you like rapidly, super rapidly turn into 90 degrees. That's how that felt. I just don't have any recollection of Dragster or Ka so violently entering the top hat like that, and then coming down too. When you're coming down on the 270, I felt like I was being like dragged down, like being pulled so much faster than my body was like prepared for. And
well, it's funny, because on that drop on our very first ride, I was like, wow, I feel kind of stapled, in the restraints. But then when the drop came, I felt like I was like hanging out. Oh, yeah. I felt like I was getting flung out of my restraint.
I felt like a parachute on the back of a drag racing vehicle, like just being whipped around. Helpless. Like, it was amazing. I was really at the mercy of this machine in that moment. That was the like oh wow moment on the ride for me. As much as great as everything else was, the swing launch and the back spike. I mean, the back spike is amazing. I feel like that's the new focal point for the whole park, because driving up to it was amazing. Like, driving up to the park, it's amazing how prominent and just central that back spike is. That feels like the centerpiece. It is like the central, literally like the tent pole of the whole park now. There's just something so
Also, let's
striking
face
about
it, the
it.
color scheme now is so much cleaner.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Very
having a
dramatic.
giant yellow structure was such a choice always.
Yeah.
And now you have that, the red and white track and then the dark gray supports. I think it looks so clean. The whole ride, the whole
The
area
color
around
scheme
it
is to die
did
for.
a really good job. It looks clean.
Everything about it is awesome.
Yeah. The queue is now completely covered, which is nice because you can be there forever.
It's just a slam dunk. Like, it took a year, but you know what? So did X2, so did Mr. Freeze. Like, it happens.
And let's give it credit. On day one, it ran the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it only broke down for like a short window.
Yeah.
On day two, it was down for a little bit longer. When it was running all 3 trains consistently.
Yeah.
Boom, boom,
When
boom,
that
boom,
thing
boom.
is
Trains
open,
were out.
the dispatches are
always something on the track.
Unbelievable.
They did a great job with that. Yeah, I really think it probably has a higher capacity now than it did before.
Absolutely.
Even though it has less trains.
Absolutely. Yeah. 3 train operations on that ride. I mean, that transfer track to load the next train into the swing launch is flipped and ready to go. The moment that the train clears the top hat, it's like you will have a train like dispatched and ready to go before the train in front of it has come to a complete stop on the brake run. And it's like, it's ready to
100%.
go.
Yeah, you're like already rolling onto the launch when that train is still going to the finish line. It's very impressive.
Yeah. Like when that thing is open and dispatching at interval, it's like nonstop. It used to be so hard to take pictures of this ride or take a selfie with this ride because it's like, oh, when does the train come? It's all like, how do you get this thing during its takeoff sequence? Because you don't get time to like get your shit together unless you're sitting there right at the launch, like waiting for it to go. And now this ride, it's like always moving. There's always a train happening. That's how right away if the ride is down, because if you get more than like 2 or 3 minutes without a dispatch, that something has actually has happened.
Yeah, and of course the ride's like very noticeable throughout the park, not just from visuals, but it also has that what Alex would have called a sonic boom.
Yeah, the bass drop.
They have that sound.
The bass drop that signals the start of your ride or the start of your countdown to your ride.
No, I just mean like
just
in the
the
park,
sound of
you
it
hear
ripping
shoot
its
of the
way through.
towers. Yeah, that vibrating stuff.
That ride is
the
just like one
sound.
big ASMR experience because it has the
100%.
bass drop right before the countdown, and then the sound of it taking off and shooting its way around. It's a great ride. I couldn't really say enough good things about that ride. I think Siren's Curse is probably my favorite ride at the park, but I think this one might objectively be the best. But I don't know.
Honestly, I may agree with it being maybe the best coaster in the park, and it takes a lot for me to say that because again, I just didn't love original Dragster. I don't even think I had original Dragster in my top 5. Like I love Wicked Twisted War. I love pretty much everything in that park more.
Something about this ride just feels like
not the
so special.
It's crazy, but yeah, this is just. They did a really good job, and I'm really excited for them. And I know that they built Siren's Curse as like the backup to this, just to have another really marketable attraction in case TT2 is down. But you know what? On our trip, TT2 was pretty consistent. Yeah. So that's good.
It's just amazing. That really, those 2 rides are a real testament to like where my headspace is at with Cedar Point, because I really think those are the 2 rides. Like that is the A team right now, are the 2 newest ride experiences in the park. And that's really special for a park that is already famous for having arguably the best coaster collection in the world. So it's like the expectations for a new coaster at a park like Cedar Point are so high. Everything will always be a victim of comparison if it's not up to expectations. And they knocked it out of the park twice, back to back.
Yeah. It really helps that lineup, which was already, of course, stacked and pretty good. But having these 2 attractions that I think are like elites helps a lot.
On a global scale, as you would say,
change our excitement for the park. On a global scale,
globally remarkable, just remarkable rides.
Yeah. So what did we do after?
After this, we went up to Magnum.
I think we tried to ride Magnum.
We went to Magnum.
And then Magnum was on one train.
You really wanted to ride Gatekeeper. I wanted to go and get the Wild West coasters sorted out, just to get them over with.
Which on the way to the Wild West, of course, was the 2.
And Magnum was running the one train of 30 minutes, and we were like, we're gonna pray that this is not what's happening tomorrow, and we skipped it. We did Maverick, which was always great. Felt a little less intense by comparison. This was when you had that kind of aha moment about how much we had done since our last Cedar Point visit. Because we came back into the station after our first Maverick ride, and we both admitted that it wasn't as intense as we remember. And we were like, well, I mean, this ride was a cultural reset. We have ridden the fruits of Maverick all over the world. We have Velocicoaster. We have Gotham City Escape. We have Dulling Dragon at Guangzhou Sunac Land. We have Thunder Dolphin at whatever that park is. Like, we have ridden so many of the descendants of Maverick, and like especially Velocicoaster and Gotham City Escape, and like having an incredible, just unparalleled degrees of intensity on these rides. And then other rides from other manufacturers that have kind of gone in a similar vein that are also incredibly intense, like Stardust Racers and Ride to Happiness, and that kind of stuff.
Fighter Jet.
Fighter Jet.
Like Fighter Jet is like Fukuoka's version of Maverick.
Yeah, all of these companies doing these amazing LSM launch and multi-launch coasters kind of made me realize that my threshold for intense roller coasters has changed a little bit. Maverick, the first few times I rode Maverick, it felt so intense to me that I couldn't believe it was in a park in the United States. Trying to pass this on as like a palatable experience for the average leisure guest. This time it felt a little less rambunctious, but we rode it 3 times.
I will say it made me appreciate the ride setting, though, because it is one of the prettiest rides at Cedar Point. Yeah. It's almost like that and Science Curve, the only rides that had some sort of decent landscaping under the ride. And that's really nice because I feel like the overall product of Maverick is still one of the best, with its really, with its really punchy launch, some really good quick transitions, good airtime. Like, it does everything well, except for my memory lived on as being like this insane experience. Mm-hmm. And Maverick, I think for the longest time was my number one at the park. Yeah. In fact, I think it was always my number one at the park until maybe this trip when everything got shuffled a little bit.
For me, Magnum and Maverick were always kind of trading places in the top 2, and now they're fighting for 3rd place.
Because on day 2, I think I enjoyed Maverick a lot more. I was like, wow, this is really...
our second ride was a front row ride, and that was awesome. And then the third ride, like, it had been running all day, and it was hot out, and like I think the rides just weren't actually running that particularly fast on Thursday because it was colder and windier, and
operations weren't as good.
Yeah, but Friday, everything was like Maverick was running at a clip all day, 6 trains all day on Friday. And so by the time we got back there and rode it the 3rd time, it was like batshit insane. It was nice. It was nice to know that it was still that girl.
Agreed.
And then while we were back there, we also rode Steel Vengeance. We gave Steel Vengeance our one obligatory ride, and it was fine.
So for me, that's one of my opinion changes. Is that in the past, Steel Vengeance just really was not my ride. I mean, I could understand people loving it, but man, it was just so gut checky and like, my shins in the shin guards the whole time. I just really didn't love that, and it always kind of irked me that it was everyone's like number one. I was like, it's a good ride, but man, like these airtime hills are so repetitive at the end. But then this time around, I appreciated the ride a lot more. And even at the last 6 hops or something, I'm kind of over it. I didn't feel as strongly against the ride. I really thought, okay, you know what? I can really kind of appreciate that it's super long and it goes on forever and has these, giant moments and then still makes its way around the superstructure like 3 whole times. I think I liked it a lot better this time than in the past, but I was just never a big fan of it in the past, even though I'm still not the biggest fan of it and still won't be in my top 5 at the park. For me, I liked it more this time, strangely.
I actually had a more pleasant ride on it than our Wildcats Revenge rides a couple weeks ago.
That's right, you did say that.
Because Wildcats Revenge,
that
second ride on Wildcats Revenge, I was in so much pain. My legs were in so much pain from the airtime. I was in agony, and I never got to that level of discomfort on Steel Vengeance. Granted, we only rode Steel Vengeance once. We did Wildcats Revenge twice, and the second time was at the end of the day, and it was hauling.
Yeah, I still personally prefer Wildcats Revenge
to Steel Vengeance.
But to Steel Vengeance, but I do like Steel Vengeance a lot now more.
I
more
would
than
say
I
my
did before.
opinion of Steel Vengeance has improved. I admit to myself that I actually, the first half of the ride I do quite like, just for the scope
That was your
of it.
1,000th credit too, remember?
Yeah,
In 2019?
that was my milestone, my number 1,000.
Ah, that's wild.
It was so random. Because there was a lot of other credits we didn't have at the park when we went together, because it had been like 7 years since I had been and you had never been. So we're kind of doing stuff as it came, and then by the time we got to Steel Vengeance, I was like, oh, I'm at $9.99. Like, this is it. This is my one. But yeah, I enjoyed it. There's moments on the ride that I remember fondly that I still enjoy. There's moments on the ride that I didn't like that weren't as terrible as I remember. So we gave it our obligatory ride, and it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Better than I remembered. And then we got to Millennium Force, and that's where stuff gets interesting. Because in the past, I was just never a big Millennium Force boy. I was never like,
Jimmy
Force.
and Cassie,
and now,
if you guys are listening, Jimmy and Cassie had to listen to us,
our friends,
bitch about how mid we thought Millennium Force was on our 2019 visit. And we were such dicks about it. And now, 6 years later, we're like, oh,
now
she's kind of funny. Now she's kind of cute.
Now we bought Millennium Force merch.
Yeah,
and now I'm sad that I didn't get a hoodie that I
Yeah.
wanted because it had my size. And I'm like, man, suddenly Millennium Force like flipped the script on me. Now I've written so much stuff, and now I'm realizing, you know what? Millennium Force is very unique in a way that like no other coaster really does what it does, and it's like a super big broad stroke approach. Like it takes up like a quarter of the park pretty much, and somehow it doesn't do much except for like a drop, a turn, a hill, a turn, a turn, a hill, a turn. Like it doesn't do a whole lot, but the way it does it in like that like classic intimate rattliness to it, and it's like this giant, this like really fast elements. It's great.
A snapshot of an era that I feel very nostalgic for these days. And
for me, I don't have that nostalgia with that ride. I wasn't, I'm younger.
The fact that Millennium Force opened when you were 4 years old is hair raising to me.
Yeah, see, so for me, like there's not that like nostalgia factor, which I think for a lot of people is what their Cedar Point experience just thrives on to begin with. Like that region of the country, first of all, is very much into Cedar Point. And then the coaster enthusiasts in general, it's always been like the pilgrimage to Cedar Point. So I get that for a lot of people, all those rides have lots of sentimental value. For me, it doesn't really have a lot of sentimental value, but I just like Millennium Force so much now. Now I'm like I'm a changed man.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I'm like super into Millennium Force.
For me,
it's
just in the last 5 years, it's accrued a lot of value as being such a unique ride. The further we get away from Millennium Force in the timeline, the grand scheme of roller coasters, it really does feel like a unique experience that you can't get anywhere else.
I think I mentioned this in our in our Instagram stories and Facebook stories, but I'm always team like Goliath, and maybe because Goliath has a little bit more of a sentimental value to me and Magic Mountain.
Totally.
But I'm always on team Goliath because everyone loves to hate on Goliath, and it's like, well, Goliath no airtime, Goliath doesn't do anything. But then Goliath is like full of helices and like lateral moments. It has a couple of decent moments of airtime. Then I'm realizing, you know what? Everyone loves Millennium Force, but Millennium Force is actually kind of similar in a similar scope. Like, it doesn't have a lot of airtime. I wouldn't say that either of the big hills in Mulder Ride really provide airtime. Would you say that they do?
No.
And then you have that little hop at the end that provides airtime. You've got the main drop that provides airtime.
I would say that
there may be more airtime on Goliath
and Millennium Force perform to a similar degree in the airtime account.
But where they shine is how different they are by not being airtime focused, which of course with Magnum there, that was never the point of Millennium Force.
Exactly.
But the things that it does do, like the super high speed turns and overbanks, which is really all there is to the ride, it does so well, and it's very unique, and I feel like I really traveled somewhere on this massive coaster.
Yeah,
I like Millennium Force now.
So true.
For me,
I really feel like
this was a big memory.
You ride that ride, and you really feel like it took you to another place. There's not a lot of coasters at Cedar Point that feel like they took you somewhere. I would say that the only other coaster that feels that way is Magnum.
Yeah,
because it goes out to the shore, and it's really still the only Cedar Point coaster that distances itself that much from the rest of the bustle of the dry park. You get a nice tour of the water park and the cabins and stuff.
I think between Magnum and Millennium, like that relationship is like a Cedar Point staple. Because Cedar Point of course, Cedar Point is the start of Cedar Fair, and it's a Cedar Fair staple, I need to say. So when Cedar Fair started acquiring Carowinds, pretty much the Paramount parks, right, and they started putting in the Hyper with airtime and the Giga without airtime. Yeah. That was more focused on like big sweeping elements. That's obviously always been inspired by the relationship between Magnum and Millennium Force. And I think this trip, I just appreciated it more.
Yeah, me too.
Millennium is really high on my list now.
Spoiler alert, sadly, we only got 2 rides on Millennium Force because...
Yeah, it was down like the whole damn day. The second day.
It was down half the day.
We got it on early admission, and then around
we got it early.
1 p.m. or something, it shut down for the whole day.
2 great rides on it, and we absolutely wanted a third ride on it, and it was down. It spent more time down on our trip than any other ride, I think, that was actually operational. Some rides never opened. Power Tower is done for the season because of its cable snap incident. But like every other ride in the park spent more time operational, I think, than Millennium Force over the course of our visit, which is a pity because we did have some really nice rides on it. But yeah, after that, we did another Siren's Curse ride. Then we went to Gatekeeper because Gatekeeper, I think, is actually Sean's favorite ride at Cedar Point. He doesn't necessarily agree, but I'm telling you that the way that he behaves around this ride, it's like a cat with catnip. Like you are like rolling around on the floor that is peppered with catnip when you ride this ride. We rode Gatekeeper, you guys. We rode Gatekeeper 5 times, more than any other ride.
I love Gatekeeper. Okay, but also Gatekeeper doesn't ever have a line though.
It's also easy. Like a Gatekeeper also really rewards you for your efforts because like you have to do the 4 corners.
You get such a you have to do 4 corners. But also you get so much back. Like, okay, you don't wait very long. There's 4 really unique ride experiences because the trains are wide and like both sides of the ride are completely different. You have forward and back, like the back row, front row. So that's 4 important moments, which we did all 4, and then one of them did it twice. And then you also get a curly long ride out of it. Yeah. I mean, you go on Gatekeeper and it's like, wow, there's so much happening, and like, I love Gatekeeper. Yeah. Obviously,
we really are.
I really do love Gatekeeper.
When I think of China, I think of wing coasters and next generation Vekoma coasters, and lo and behold, our Cedar Point trip, the coasters that we rode the most were the wing coaster and Siren's Curse, which we got 4 rides on. And if Siren's Curse had
a shorter line, they would have ridden that much more. Yeah. But, you show up to Gatekeeper and it's much guaranteed not a line
Gatekeeper,
for it, which is great.
Like just, you just show up and party. So
capacity beast. And yeah, I mean, I guess, okay, let's talk about Gatekeeper. So I think it's no secret that I love wing coasters. And we haven't done our In It to Wing It episode yet because we also haven't done our King's Dominion episode yet, which we do soon because we have to discuss Repterra. Because as a wing coaster enthusiast, spoiler alert, Repterra made me very sad because I wanted to love that ride so much. And I don't even think I dislike a single wing coaster, except for there's 2 that I just don't appreciate very much, and that's the 2 new ones that rattle. Anyway, besides that, in the grand scheme, on the global scale of wing coasters, Gatekeeper is still really, really awesome. It's still like a massive, well-executed ride that fits really well with Cedar Point. I feel like it has instant icon status, being, of course, on the front of the park and with the gate, having like a pretty decent aesthetic to it, but then just layout wise, it is so strong. I mean, I feel like every single ride a grayed out almost on that pretzel element, whatever you call the first part of the ride. That's kind of unique.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, nobody else has done that since then. I kind of feel like a gray out, and then having the giant airtime hill that has sustained floater in every single seat the whole way through. Then having the 0G roll, the turnaround dive loop, and then another roll. I mean, everything that this ride does, it does so eloquently. I feel like this was a golden era B&M. I think that's what you said when you were writing it. You said, "Oh, this is golden era B&M," and it stuck with me because it's golden era B&M. I think this is when I feel like B&M was just building the best shit they were building.
That period of time where everybody was starting to complain that B&M coasters were becoming boring and mild. That was the greatest period of their careers. I think we were complaining about what they were doing, and it is actually, we were living in the best B&M era wistfully unaware of how significant it was, because in retrospect, I mean, like, yeah, we got a lot of great stuff from B&M in the 90s, the Batman clones and like early generation inverted coasters. But when we started seeing stuff like Gatekeeper, I like, oh, like that was wonderful. Like there was seeing rides like the wing coaster and the dive coasters start to really take off, getting stuff like Banshee and Thunderbird at Holiday World. Like those were that was a great time. That was a great era for this company. Getting more rides, getting rides like Fury 325, like these were rides that all happened back to back to back. We got Gatekeeper, Banshee, and Fury 3 years in a row. And like that was amazing.
Like, yeah, exactly.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that's a good point, because
awesome.
Back then they would kind of release these like layouts, almost like blueprints of the rides as like part of marketing, like B-roll. They would have like like the white background, and then they would show you the ride layout. And like year after year, Cedar Fair came with this like banging, bigger than ever seen before version of that B&M that they were gonna build. And it was just a great time to be alive. And I think Gatekeeper is a testament to like, that's really golden era B&M. That was cool stuff. It runs really well. It's reliable. It's smooth. There's intensity. Like I don't know what people are saying about stuff not being intense, but like there's not a single ride I grayed out on at Cedar Point on this trip, except for on Gatekeeper. Yeah. So like the wing coaster is not as mild as everyone's over here acting like it is. Yeah. People just love to hate on some of these products, and I think that's BS. Yeah. Like these are good rides.
I think
these
that
are good
run,
rides.
starting with Leviathan in 2012 and finishing with Fury in 2015, was just like an unbelievable run of coasters.
I feel like they tried catching that lightning again with Fjallraven.
Yeah.
It was 2016, right?
2016 B&M edition.
And I feel like at that point, it was already like the start, the end.
That was when the wave started to break a little bit. I will say we rode, that was actually what we rode next. We rode Fjallraven.
We did ride that,
because we hadn't ridden it since 2019. We skipped it on both of our 2020 visits because we just weren't.
And one of our long-term followers, Mike Previtt, he commented on one of our posts a while back. He's like, you know what? You're not going to believe this, but I just rode Fjallraven, and like in the the modern scheme of dive machines, suddenly I love this ride, and it's so much better than people give it credit for, and I actually really like it. And I said, like,
looks a lot.
You know what? We'll have to just ride it then and just like experience it for ourselves.
That's a
so shout out to him for bringing it up, and I kind of agree.
That's a ride.
No, I don't hate Fjallraven.
Looks a lot better in the rear view mirror than it did in the windshield.
Yeah, because I wasn't a
Fjallraven when they announced
fanboy
it,
either.
I was like, oh my god, like what is this? This is not the follow-up that we deserved from like following up on rides like Gatekeeper and Banshee and Fury 325. Like this just does not feel like, it just felt safe, uneventful. We had waited 10 years for another dive coaster to come to the United States, and this is what we got. We got the first dive coaster with the vest restraints. I think a lot of people's
complaints were not even, exactly, the vest
restraints
were like the issue
God,
there.
What is this bullshit? And then like now, the ride's almost 10. It's finishing up its 10th season. And now I'm like, no, I like this ride. It serves its purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And the layout, I'm starting to notice, okay, they were doing stuff for 2016 that was actually kind of unique because there weren't many dive machines around. We waited, again, forever to get them. And they did introduce a bunch of stuff that we hadn't seen before. Of course, the first half was pretty much like all the classic big boy B&Ms, like the one I just rode in China, actually 2 days prior to that. And Ashikra and Griffin, like they all do the drop, and then they have the big, what do you call that? Not even Immelman, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, they have the big Immelman, and then they have a big turn to the brake run. But then after the brake run is when it gets interesting, because instead of doing another small Immelman or doing a big turn or something, it goes into a dive loop, which, with the trains being wide, maneuvering that is actually quite cool.
I love dive
then
loops.
It goes
That's
into,
like my favorite element on any coaster.
And being on the wing of Fjallraven is actually kind of a snappy element.
Yeah.
Then you go into a turn that turns to a helix with a sharp airtime hill. And I'm starting to realize...
Well, the zero-G roll into the turn, into the airtime hill.
Yeah. So now I'm starting to realize that I'm appreciating having this second half of the ride, because when it was opened, it actually was a significant improvement. I think everyone was so stuck on the vest restraints, and I was stuck on the vest restraints.
I was stuck on a few things. I hated the fact that it didn't have a keyhole element or like a tunnel or anything. I
Or
hated the
flash
fact that
down
it
or
had
whatever.
vest restraints. But I realize now, looking back, that everything that I hated about Valraven as an experience just doesn't bother me as much as it used to.
I think I agree.
Because now dive coasters have just morphed into something. I guess, like, the pressures are kind of off. You know, we've gotten a lot of great dive coasters since Valraven. Valraven was what carried so much expectation on the back of the Busch dive coasters, and now looking at it, it's like, well, the pressure's gone. Now you can it's just a lot easier to enjoy the ride for what it is now that it's almost 10 years old, instead of looking for what you wanted from a dive coaster in 2015, back when there was only 2 in the country. So, like,
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
other dive coasters, we've ridden a lot of them. We've ridden.
It still, to me, feels a bit like a wing coaster in a way, though. And maybe, I mean, of course, it's not nearly as good as Gatekeeper, but maybe that was always the problem to begin with.
Was that it
talking about like what they did or didn't need. You're not going to build Gatekeeper, follow up with like, just because it's a dive machine with vest restraint, it's practically a wing coaster where you can sit in the middle.
One thing that I actually will say is that I didn't appreciate the back half of this ride until we rode Siren's Curse, and you go down the exit, and the second half of Valraven is just beautifully on display. There's just something so elegant about that entire sequence of events after the mid-course break run that I was like, this is a very pleasing ride. Like, this is a very aesthetically, like, they did something very, very nice and very fluid with that second half of the ride. I mean, any B&M coaster that has a strong post mid-course deserves some credit, because a lot of B&M coasters, once you hit the first mid-course, that first set of breaks, that's where your ride ends. Even great B&Ms like Alpengeist, everything that's great about Alpengeist happens before the first mid-course, just about. Rides like Gatekeeper, the mid-course is really a 3/4 course. Once you hit the brakes, it's like you get a helix and a little hill, but your ride is coming to an end. I love that for Valraven, like, really, you hit the mid-course break run, your ride is just getting started. A lot of the meat of this experience is actually still happening after that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I also appreciate this time a little bit more is that I don't want to say it's integrated very well, but the way that it sits and having all of the beefy parts of the ride being inward towards the park, and having the tallest parts of the ride outward towards the maintenance side of things made me appreciate it more, because now I feel like the ride was clearly very much designed to be like facing the lake for the drop, and having planters around the supports, and having the way that it laid out along the existing midways of the park, I think was actually a clever design based on what they all managed to do with that layout. So I appreciate that more. And then seeing how they put Simon's Curse in, which is really just a clone that they relocated, literally, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was little pieces from already sitting in New Mexico, or sitting in Mexico already.
Yeah, the whole ride was
and then
in
they
Mexico.
moved it all over.
They moved it.
Like they just yanked it out of Mexico and said, okay, we're going to put it here. And so like you can just feel that the ride was never designed to be there. And so the way that everything is shaped and facing on Simon's Curse, they had to get really creative with even the entrance for the tilts, for it to be like a focal point. That made me appreciate, in a way, Valraven, because I feel like it actually is quite nicely designed, using some of the more classic elements and some new elements.
Everything about that ride,
it fits very nicely in that part of the park. Then
Yeah, I agree with you too. I agree with that too.
So that's something I just never really gave any thought to. I was like, in fact, I thought it was kind of ugly in a way in my first couple of visits. I'm like, oh my God, like this thing, like really here. But now I'm starting to appreciate that it really was designed in a way that it kind of really respected the existing park's layout and path and midways, and still gave room to corkscrew to be seen all the way from the entrance. You stare down that right side of the midway, like it's parallel midways, all the way down to like down the peninsula pretty much. And you stare down, and you can stare all the way down the corkscrew. And it could have easily been obstructed by Valraven, and it's not. So anyway, I guess I appreciate that ride more on this trip as well. Yeah. As time goes on, I've started to appreciate Cedar Point the way everyone's always been appreciating Cedar Point.
And that was
that all we rode on day one? No, we did Raptor.
We ended up we got our second ride on Top Thrill 2.
True.
Valraven and
The
Steel
Sunset
Vengeance were
ride.
kind of our day one activities. Those were our one and done rides. Everything else that we rode on day one, we got at least one more ride on, in the case with Millennium Force and Raptor. But Valraven and Steel Vengeance were kind of like those rides were strictly day one experiences. By the time we rode Valraven, the weather finally cleared up. It was when it started getting prettier, and we started taking some pictures and video of stuff. We got our second ride on Top Thrill 2 when like the dramatic positioning of the sky, I think, really elevated the experience on that ride because you're up so high. And then Raptor, which had been down for a long time, was finally operational, and we decided to get an insurance ride on Raptor before heading out of the park. And I love Raptor. I love seeing like B&M figure itself out in a ride like Raptor. There's just like moments on this ride that they would never intentionally do again, like some of the straightaway moments, like connecting the two corkscrews or flat spins on the ride with that like funky little turn around the loop, and then it's kind of like a straightaway. Like it just feels very like there's those parts of this ride that do not flow. But it's like
Yeah. We're gonna talk about flowy rides. That's just not it. But you know what? That kind of reminds me of Patriot at California's Great America, which we just did an episode on last week, by the way. So listen to that. That also kind of feels like you have that transition where you go from the 0G roll and then you just kind of float around and then you like navigate around the station and then eventually there's another drop into the next element. That's exactly how that part of Raptor feels. Like you did that flat spin into the meandering, clearing whatever they got to clear into a drop, into a corkscrew.
Yeah.
Now think about it. Those are pretty similar
there's
moments.
Some funny. Do you mean Patriot or Flight Deck?
Flight Deck, oh my God, Flight Deck.
But Patriot is guilty of that too.
Deck, yeah.
Patriot is,
but yeah, same
it's so
thing.
funny. Both of those coasters are just classic B&M because both of them have at least one point on the ride where it feels like they didn't know exactly what to do. So they just kind of did their best. Whereas in this era of roller coaster design, everything is deliberate, everything is intentional. In the 90s, when rides like Patriot and Flight Deck and Raptor were being built, it was like, get it back to the station. You know, you have focal point elements.
Yeah, that like auto finish section of Roller Coaster Tycoon
like,
3, where like it will be the weirdest shapes, whatever fits.
There's certain things like space constraints and like there's certain demands. All three of these rides are very similar in the sense that they have very peculiar plots of land that they had to fill. Raptor was actually occupying two separate places of land with a midway in between, and it was sort of like it was B&M's conundrum to like fill both of these plots with a single ride and bridging over the midway with elements that like you could walk under. But with all three of these rides, there's at least one part of the ride where you're kind of just meandering, like you're connecting one focal point to another focal point with like just some directional sectional, just getting you from point A to point B. And I love that in retrospect, because it just feels like it's just something about it that's so nostalgic, because you won't, things start to feel a lot more formulaic in the late 90s, early 2000s. Every moment of a ride is particular and very particularly engineered. And compared to a ride like Medusa, like the Scream layout, where that ride has a great flow to it. There's a lot of like intentionalness with that ride and the way that everything is positioned and shaped. That it doesn't have the same quirks as the stuff that they were doing in the early 90s, where they were just kind of almost felt like they were making it up as they went along. Alpengeist feels a little bit more intentional too. Everything seems a lot more traditional and straightforward and like optimized in a way, but it lacks the level of quirks that a ride that Raptor has, where they were just happy to get it back to the station and
I
fill
will
these
say
plots.
that's what I love about Raptor. It's all about the quirks, because there's so many good B&Ms out there, but I think very few of them have like the quirkiness to it. The parts where like it feels like some elements, for example, had to be not just between the corkscrews, but even that start of the corporate roll had to be kind of like located.
Where, there's like a straightaway going into the corkscrew just so it can clear itself.
There's lots of little moments on that ride that are like that, and I think I like that so much about the super early generation. This is actually quite an early B&M invert.
Yeah. This was the third.
And it was the first big skill one.
B&M, a third or fourth. I'm trying to think, like, I guess Nemesis and Raptor were being developed at the same time, I think.
Yeah, and at that era
at the time,
of the
we only
invert, this is
had
nice.
Batman the Ride and so we had Batman the Ride and Flight Deck. And Raptor opened, Raptor and Nemesis, and Nemesis was, amazing too. It was amazing to its credit, but it was also like just kind of a chopped up version of Batman the Ride. And with Raptor, they were like, well, we're going to do a Cobra roll. Like, we're going to do some things with this ride that we haven't done yet. And we have to jam it all in there, make it fit and make it functional. And a midway has to go under it. And we're going to do 6 inversions. And like, it was a tall order. They really challenged themselves when developing that ride. It's like, I fondly recall seeing that ride as a child and realizing that it was like the next step up from the prototype, like, layouts of just loops and corkscrews and zero G rolls of the designs that preceded it. Like, this was the coaster that led to the era of inverted coasters that gave us the Busch inverts. This was the stepping stone into Montu and Alpengeist and Afterburn.
You know what we should do soon? We need to go ride the Monster at Valigator.
The park formerly known as Valigator. Oh, no, it's still Valigator,
Is it still
right?
Valigator? Yeah.
It's the other park that is now
Yeah, we should ride it soon.
Yeah, we should go there and ride
Yeah.
it. I hear it's great. It doesn't have a mid-course brake run. It's like it's there, like it's supposed to be, but there's no mechanism or anything there for it.
And so that finished up day one, which I will say day one ended up being pretty okay because we got more done we thought we would, especially because Rapture, for example, opened in the last hour. So that was good.
Day one.
And overall, we fared pretty well by doing double Top Thrill, double Siren, Millennium Maverick,
Steel Vengeance,
Steve,
Gatekeeper,
and like
Valraven, and Raptor.
3 rides on Gatekeeper. Yeah, so we actually did pretty good. So we cannot complain. But at the start off, kind of rough,
we rode
wasn't
Gatekeeper
great.
twice
And then the
in a
weather
row,
got kind of
too.
nice.
Day one was all about taking the pressure off of day 2, because then we rolled up at day 2. The weather was nice, everything was running, and we're like, we're so ahead of the game.
Admission. We didn't even know we could
we
get
had
early admission with
admission.
our passes, by the way.
Oh my God, you guys.
Yeah, we had no idea.
I stumbled upon the fact that, like, as Six Flags membership holders, we are also Cedar Point Prestige Pass holders.
Yeah, like with the All Park Passport add-on to our memberships, it automatically converted us into Prestige Passes for every single Cedar Fair
We made
park.
I made an account on the Cedar Fair app, on the Cedar Point app, because I figured that would help smooth out the fast lane one-shot purchase process for Siren's Curse, and it didn't. It was still a process, but by logging into my Cedar Point account that I apparently already had, it pulled up, like, via my birthday and email, it pulled up my pass credentials, and it's like, it says Cedar Point Prestige Pass. And then that night at the hotel, we were like, we need to figure out what rides are open for early entry, because that could help us with our planning for when we rope drop at 10 o'clock. And then I saw that Prestige Pass was included in early entry. I was like, oh, no way. So I told Sean, I was like, make an account in Cedar Point app, download it, put your email address in, and see what happens. And it pulled up his ticket, his Six Flags pass, as a Cedar Point Prestige Pass. Automatically as well. Quick. So we were like, oh, great. So we roll up, we get there like 8:45, preferred parking. We get right into the park right at 9 o'clock. And the coasters that were scheduled to be open were Gatekeeper, Iron Dragon, and Millennium Force. And we're like, okay, great. Like, let's go do Iron Dragon, Millennium Force. We'll we'll head toward the back of the park and get another ride on Maverick early in the day. We get there, and all of those rides are open, and Siren's Curse, and Top Thrill 2. So, and neither of those were advertised to be open. We even talked to people that were in the line for Siren's Curse, and they were like, yeah, they said that this ride wasn't even going to be open. This wasn't even, like, part of the roster of rides. They told us specifically it'd be closed, but it was open, it was running, and we were like, oh, this is great. So we had Iron Dragon, Siren's Curse.
Well, yeah, because we went over to Iron Dragon first, just so we could be close to Siren's Curse. And then suddenly I'm seeing people walk into the queue. So I'm like, please hold. So we're like, you know what? Let's just pop all of our stuff in a Siren's Curse locker, which, the bags need to go in there. And then that way we're ready to go as soon as it's actually open. But turns out it was open right. I mean, it was open at the early admission. It was crazy. Yeah, I can't believe it. So that really lucked out because we only waited like 10, 15 minutes for it. And then we did Iron Dragon, which Iron Dragon also trended up for me. It's still nothing. Like it's still ride. Kind of a tame little coaster. But now that it's going around that big back spike, I liked it a lot more this time. I waited for the front row, and I enjoyed it more. And then maybe because I also didn't have to wait much for it, because I don't think I like waiting for that. But I liked it. I appreciated it more. Maybe I'm just appreciative more these days of these coasters.
It's very popular. It's a great little family ride.
It is very popular. Oh my God, I had lines both days, A
lot of the coasters surrounding
added more switchbacks to it.
That ride are very intense. It's like situated between Siren's Curse, Rougarou, and Cedar and Millennium Force. So it always seemed quite popular every time we walked by. That was like part of the reason why riding it at an early admission was a great thing to take advantage of, because that was the shortest that the line was for that ride all day. But yeah, it was great. It's also fun. Yeah, Top Thrill 2's makeover, it has elevated the experience of Iron Dragon, and just being in the context of that ride, meandering around it and seeing, floating over the brake run on that little 270 turn before the second lift. So it was a great little ride. I love how scenic it is. That little bit like where the first drop is some of the last like natural elements of Cedar Point. It's relatively unspoiled. Hasn't really been touched since Iron Dragon was built, so it's great being in that little thick of woods, surrounded on all sides by roller coasters, but for a moment it feels like it's just kind of you and Iron Dragon in the trees.
For just a moment.
And then after that, by this point we were still waiting for Rougarou to open, and it didn't open the first day, and it was still late opening on this day.
Well, we first rode Millennium, though, didn't we? Yeah, because Millennium was part of early.
Yeah, but we didn't ride Rougarou until way later. But we had been in the area of the park and thinking, like, when is Rougarou going to open? Like, we were so excited because we love Rougarou.
That's right. But
yeah, we ended up getting... And then by the time we were done with our second Millennium Force ride, we were exactly where we needed to be to hop on Maverick, ride it open. And we had 4 rides on 3 major e-ticket coasters and Iron Dragon within like by 10:15. So like we were in great shape.
Yeah, which at this point it was great, because then we could head over to Magnum. Before that we got busy, and then we realized it was on just
finally,
on one train.
Magnum was running 2
trains. And we waited for the front row, and I don't recall this ride being absolutely tits, like absolutely crazy, like off the rails, quite literally. Like it was almost jank how crazy fast it went. But like we were in front row, and the airtime was murderous. Yeah. I mean, murderous airtime, flying into the restraint
first thing in the morning.
Holy crap! Oh my God! I had this whole new appreciation for the ride. And I think in the past I was always like, well, it's not Desperado, which rest in peace. It's not Desperado. But then this trip I realized, okay, it's not Desperado, but it still was very good. I mean, I've always enjoyed it, but I think now I love it even more.
Even though it beat the piss out of us on that first ride, we were so impressed.
Oh my God,
so blown away. We just turned right around and rode it again in the back.
In the back, though, just to kind of paces.
And it's like, God, I love this ride.
But then we came back later and we rode it again in the front.
Yeah, that was one of the coasters we did get free rides on.
We looked like crazy.
And we got our butts kicked every time, but God, it's so fun. That's definitely still a
We always had to ride this one in the front of a car for us, though, because we're got long legs. And the leg room is very generous in the front of the cars. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was
definitely
phenomenal. Definitely a highlight
like
for me.
A top 5 ride for
and
us.
I love the commitment to like the 80s aesthetic and the music and having like Dynatron synth music playing in the station and having it like music in that foggy neon light tunnel on the ride. They really play into this Magnum, this like space age 80s space vibe, and I love that part. That's totally a vibe that I vibe with. So Magnum was definitely a highlight of the trip as well. Even though we've always loved it, I think we came to the conclusion that it still ranks second in the group of the 3
I was sad that it was not a good option for us to spend our time on day one, like with the one train operation. Like it killed me to walk away from it, but I was like, I just have to hope that tomorrow we'll get several rides on it because it's definitely like it was always my number one leading up to my trips with you, Sean. And then like by the 2019, 2020 trips, I was like, okay, well maybe Maverick is my number one, but it was always those two. And now it's the top four: Siren's Curse, Top Thrill 2, Maverick, and Magnum in some order, some general order there. And then probably rounded out the top five would be Millennium Force, surprisingly.
Yeah, can you believe that? I feel like it changed quite a bit. I mean, I guess we haven't really talked about Wild Mouse much, but Wild Mouse is cute.
Wild Mouse is next. That was where we went
honestly,
next, remember?
Yeah, like blowing through that final mid-course was exciting, but like it was like intense. I could hurt
that
my
last
back.
couple
like, oh
of turns
God,
before the final brakes on Wild Mouse were hilarious because it felt like you should have been trimmed and you were not. The ride does not trim at all.
Like what in the
it
Europe
carries
was that?
Its entire.
I guess it makes sense. It's next
the
to those
entire
European
first
flat
drop
rides.
momentum carries with you the whole ride. It was actually very fun. We had wanted to ride that on day one, but it was down for weather.
Oh,
right?
at the end of the day, it went down. Yeah. I
we
think
just didn't have time. We were like, we're running low on time. We gave it like 5 minutes. And they were like, let's just go ride Gatekeeper again. And then we finished up with Raptor. But then once we were done with Magnum, we were like, okay, Wild Mouse is the next top priority. Like we got to get the credit. We did that. We did more Gatekeeper. We did the Ferris wheel, which was really fun. It was hot waiting in line for that, but it was fun. Took some pictures. We ended up spending quite a bit of time in that little area between doing the mouse and doing Gatekeeper and doing the Ferris wheel.
Also, I know we're talking about the coasters episode, but those fries we had, that fry stand underneath Raptor, totally banging.
Yeah.
Those are good damn fries.
Cheese on a stick was way better than I was expecting.
Oh, see, I didn't care for it much. To me, it was too much.
Yeah.
But for you, it was good. Yeah. Good. But the fries for me were the highlight. Yeah. I mean, I love me some fries if they're good.
And then we were going to do Raptor again, but it kept going down. We took the Sky Ride over. It was open while we were on the Sky Ride. And then after our midday Starbucks recharge, it was down again. And then so by that point in the day, we started we still had so much time. And Top Thrill 2 kept going down, but we knew we'd probably get on it again later. We'd already gotten 3 rides on Siren's Curse.
But wait, we have to mention this cute little Coaster Dynamics train you got from Millennium Force.
So Millennium Force, I mean, they've had these for a long time, but the Coaster Dynamics statics trains for Millennium Force, they busted those back out of the gift shop for the ride's 25th anniversary. It's obvious that these models have been sitting in a stock room for ages because the heat-treated paper for the sticker for the barcode had melted. Yeah, I can go get it. It's I'll be right back. Sean, entertain the people.
I could put it in the
Tell
video
them about
that
Blue
way.
Streak or something. That was the
people.
next thing that we wrote.
Oh, well, I don't really like talking about Blue Streak a whole lot because I don't really care much about Blue Streak. I will say the first half of Blue Streak ran kind of rough. And then the Cedar Fair modifications to the PTC trains, or the Philadelphia Toboggan Company trains, they have such bulky middles, and they have a seatbelt there. And we're big guys, but we're not big guys, and we always have a hard time fitting ourselves into those seats. So we wrote it just so we can say we wrote it. And I think Alex appreciates wooden coasters a whole lot more than I do. Classic Woodies, I like them, but he loves them. So we did write that, but overall, it wasn't that much of a highlight for me. I'm just glad that we can at least say that we rode all the coasters in the park. And that was everything on Blue Streak. Now Alex is back with the train. Okay. Look at the timing.
So,
show the train to the people
in the video. I posted
video.
about this online because there's a Coaster Dynamics. There's a couple of fan groups on Facebook, and apparently you can order these from the Cedar Point website too. You can get this. You can get one of these shipped to your house. I mean, these are classic.
So if you want one, okay.
This one, here you can see that the sticker is this is where the barcode is supposed to be, but it's invisible because it has been on the shelf for so long. I got the yellow one because this was the last one that was on the shelf. That was yellow.
And we were commenting earlier on how much we love the yellow train blazing around the park and the skyline.
And it's only $45. These have been $45 since they were introduced, which means that the price has gone down. Adjusted for inflation, right?
Based on inflation, yeah.
So, and then with your
boy math,
boy math right there. With your Prestige Pass discount, or there's a coupon code. I think it's there's a hold on. There's a coupon code that you can put in. Brandon Anderson, if you're listening, Brandon pointed out this code. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Coaster Dynamics. Because I posted a picture of this, like the shelf that had all the different color trains, and I was like, "Oh, you guys, it's so nice to see these for sale again." And the comment section just like exploded. They were like, "Oh my god, where did you like? What are those doing there? Like, well, I hadn't seen those. These haven't been made in over 10 years." But it was like a little known thing. It was like, "Oh, you can actually get these online still." Where is my post? Hold on just a sec. While I look for this, Sean, what was the next credit that we got? What was the next thing we need to talk about?
So we already just talked about Blue
Yeah.
Streak. So the next thing we can talk about is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. No, Gemini. Which Gemini is a great story.
Oh, no,
because
Corkscrew.
on Gemini,
We wrote Corkscrew first, right?
Oh, Corkscrew. Yeah. Oops. I forget about all these arrows. Because the arrow collection at the park is not as great as at other parks. You can tell
everything that's arrow there was like, the first attempt.
Yeah, like Corkscrew. I appreciate Corkscrew for being Corkscrew in a little airtime hill. I will say, if you sit in the front row, it's kind of magnificent because the front row, you can put your feet, you can put your legs
the way
pretty
out.
Much all the way down
it's
the
like
nose
a
of the
coaster. It's like you're just sitting on the floor.
Like laying down
like
while you're
touch your
riding
toes.
it. And so that is such a highlight for me. And the ride itself, I mean, it runs like an old Aero looper. I think it actually runs okay. Like, I don't hate it, but we also had the best seats in the house.
Airtime hill and into the loop, and then going up into the flat straightaway turnaround, like it's bonkers. It doesn't do a whole lot, but what it does do is actually pretty fun. It's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, Corkscrew was Corkscrew.
I'm glad we wrote it. That was definitely not a priority, but it was fun writing it. It's worth 15, 20 minutes of your time. But anyway, so I found the coupon code.
Did you find the code?
Yeah, welcome 20, all caps. You can see that. But you can order the what's left of the Coaster Dynamics Bunny and Force statics train stock. It's dead stock, so like once they sell out, there's no more. You can get it 20% off. 20% off, $45 plus shipping. If you don't feel like going to Cedar Point and lugging it to your house, I was kind of just glad, like seeing it. I was like, oh, let me just get this real quick, and I had room in my luggage, and I was like, let me just get this real quick. But yeah, it's actually a pretty accessible thing to get. And then once they're gone, they're gone. So I was really grateful to see them. I have a Coaster Dynamics statics train of the Cannonball at Lake Winnipesaukee that I've had since high school. So it was like very nostalgic for me to see these statics models again. For a split second, I was like, oh my God, have they started making statics again? But they haven't made any of these in at least 10 years. So get one while you can, because someday they won't be purchasable from anyone anywhere except for on eBay. So
and then our next coaster we're going to talk about is Gemini, and Gemini was kind of a cool experience.
That was ended up being one of the most memorable experiences of the whole trip.
Yeah, for like so many reasons. For like this completely drugged out or like drunk lady that just would not stop talking to us, and the fact that we cascaded and sat on the mid-course breaks, like elevated above the park.
So I'd forgotten this ride's layout and like where the block sections were, but the only mid-course block is actually right before the last turnaround, right before the break. So it's like 3/4 of the way into the ride. And we came crashing into the pinch brakes, and I was like, gosh, these trims are on really hard. Like, we're just going to crawl right back.
Yeah, I think it took us a quick
second. And then we came to a stop, and I was like, wow, like they stop you here? Like that seems a little excessive. And then I'm waiting for the train to keep going. I'm waiting. And then we were just sitting up there. Us and some of these funky people that we were sharing a train with. It was a cultural experience, to be sure.
Yeah. And the views were cute, and then it was just cool to do that. I was kind of hoping we could walked off. I know it's unlikely, but I was kind of hoping for that. But that didn't happen. But we still finished the ride, and I remember never really caring much for Gemini, and of course liking it better when it was racing, and it hasn't been racing in our last couple of visits. But I do must give credit to this ride is that it is quite smooth. It is quite smooth. It runs
It was
well.
better
It's good
than I
airtime, nice
remember.
pacing.
It was very smooth.
I like Gemini a lot more than I remember too.
Mhm.
I feel like this is the theme of the park. What should be the title of this episode? I haven't even decided on that yet. Cedar Point.
Let's
Better
talk
than I
about
remember. Like I don't know.
We have shedded our past jadedness about this park. We are.
Maybe Cedar Point isn't so bad after
2025, the year I turned into a Cedar Point fanboy.
I guess I'm a Cedar Point. Oh, this could be kind of good. I guess we're Cedar Point.
I guess we're Cedar Point fanboys. Wow.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be the episode.
But I've always loved Cedar Point. I've just had periods of time in my life where I was not. No, well, when I was in the '90s, I was a fanboy. Before I went to Cedar Point, I was a fanboy because I was like every other coaster '90s kid, and I saw Cedar Point on the Travel Channel and just thought it was the coolest. Just the bee's knees, there was just nothing that would be greater.
The bee's knees.
There's nothing would be greater than a Jet2 holiday. No, nothing could be greater than going to Cedar Point.
Darling, hold my hand.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. But yeah, so
they played that Jet2 holiday.
Yeah,
song
they were playing Jess Glynn. Hold my hand, and I was like, nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. Oh my God. Years from now, people are not going to know what that means. That meme will have been forgotten. Everybody talking about Jet2 holiday this, it'll be like, what? Like, what does that mean? It'll be a meme hieroglyph, if ever there was one. And then
so did we talk about Rougarou like yet? Not really.
Oh yeah, no, we haven't talked about Rougarou yet. We rode Rougarou.
I guess we could finish with that because they're not finished with Cedar Creek Mine Ride.
Let's not end it on a negative note with Cedar Creek Mine Ride because that was not a positive experience. The amount of time it takes.
Yeah, those trains are like brutal, and so they the trains are similar to, or if not the same as the trains on Magic Mountain's Gold Rusher, except for those metal bars are heavily padded and they need to go down into one singular setting, just like Magic's, but they go down pretty far. So then you have to put on your super tight little seatbelt, and then you're instructed even by the automated audio to cross your legs, tuck in your ankles, and tuck it underneath the seat. And then they come by and they try to push it on you. And, every single dispatch would take so long because they could not get half of the damn trains to clear to push your train far enough down because there's just such a little window of thinness of people to be able to ride. And so when we rode, same thing. Our car was having a hard time getting out of there. And then you finally are seated and then you're super uncomfortable because you're super tight in the extra restraint. Tight. And then you have a little metal buckle, smashed between that and your body. And all that, I get that it's all for security, but I feel like it was kind of overkill. And then also kind of because the ride layout's not great. So then it didn't make for a good ride. It's kind of whatever,
It was a means to an end. Like, I'm glad we got to ride it, but God, it's not something I would subject myself to willingly again. It just feels so unnecessarily uncomfortable to experience that ride. I don't know why they haven't done a Gemini-style single ratcheting lap bar train for this ride yet, because, they could literally take two of Gemini's trains.
They can just take two trains. Yeah, exactly.
They don't need 6 trains for Gemini anymore. Those days are over. Take two of Gemini's trains.
And they don't need more than 2 for Mine
and put them on my train.
Yeah.
It's right there. The answer is right there. They have literally posted on social media that they can run Gemini's trains on my train. Just do it.
Then do it.
Stop.
Yeah. I do like the way that it fits in that side of the park, and it is one of the only really pretty scenic rides.
I love the part where it goes over the water. It's a cute moment.
Complimentary.
I don't know what Ron Toomer's obsession was with having straightaways that were banked, but it's so funny. You do that drop, the one decent drop on this whole ride, where you drop down, you're over the water, but instead of skating along it, you're it's uncomfortable on purpose.
Almost like GCI's obsession of doing brake runs that are slanted. Anyway, so then we'll finish our coaster lineup talk with Rougarou.
Yeah.
Which Rougarou, I'm a classic looper kind of boy. Probably also the reason I like wing coasters. I love my floorless coasters. Not all of them, but this one I particularly like because I always thought that the layouts for the stand-ups, I don't know why, but they were really obsessed with doing a bunch of twister moments on the stand-up coasters, like quirky little transitions and helices, and they were so focused on that with the stand-ups. I don't know, maybe I don't know why,
Mantis
but they
feels
love
like it's got one step in the old B&M and one step in the late 90s, 2000s B&M. The first half of this ride was very much inspired by the big style, the big scale kinds of coasters that they were doing, things like Kumba, Dragon Con, it was really the only other coaster besides those two coasters that was to that scale by that point in history, because it's a bigger scale. The inversions are larger than even like something like Raptor. These were the only other coaster that had inversions of this scope were the two sit down B&M loopers and then like Montu, which opened the same year. So like the first half of that ride was like a forecast for what we would expect to see from B&M as like the floorless coaster came out. Lots of big loops and like the big dive loop and lots of, the like kind of upward acrobatics and stuff. And then everything after the mid-course brake run is like classic, like first generation B&M. Like someone once described it to me as like the second half of the ride is literally just Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America. The mid-course brake into a corkscrew, and then it does like a couple of bow tie ass maneuvers and then goes into the brake run. And that was completely when they built Chang at Kentucky Kingdom, which was a riff on Mantis. They cut the second half of the ride and started from scratch entirely, and kept the first half of the ride. So,
but even Chang's layout was really fun when it came to all those transitions and hills and Ulysses and whatnot. But they added that second corkscrew in there.
It had a great second half. It just wasn't like this really tightly wadded up ball of elements. It was a drop into a corkscrew and then like a 270 down into another corkscrew, and then it kind of did like a little zigzag S turn and then plugged back into the brake run. And then of course Ritterer's Revenge took that a step further, riffed on it a little bit more. It was more of just about like directional turnarounds to position you for other corkscrews, whereas with Rougarou, it's like you do the corkscrew and then you're just like this like mess of turns and little like whips around and stuff, like just for the sake of it. And like that is just classic like late 80s Intamin Giovanola stuff, early 90s B&M stuff, kind of like Vortex at Carowinds, like that kind of thing. Where like the final corkscrew wasn't the last moment on the ride. There was still all of this like energy they wanted to get out of, to exhaust naturally. So they're like, well, here's a figure eight, here's like a helix, here's all this stuff. So that was like, I feel like that was the last time that B&M did that with a coaster was with Mantis. It was with Mantis.
And that's why I love, Rougarou / Mantis so much. It's because it does all that. And I think adding floorless trains to it, it really highlights. I feel like the transitions are like that are actually even better on the floorless coaster. Yeah. Like you get these little swings and your legs a little swing in. And I think it's very nice. And then I like the inversions on the ride. But I overall really like Rougarou. It's just that because it opened on day 2. And there was also everything else was finally open on day 2. Where I don't think we gave it a lot of attention, and we rode it once, and it was fine. And I rode in the hard line, so I had a smoother ride. I know you kind of banged your head a little bit.
No, I didn't, but it was close.
I think in hindsight, I wish I had ridden it again.
We had one really good ride on it, and we decided to quit while we were ahead because it was definitely rougher than I remember.
Yeah,
and I was like, ooh.
Also, the lockers. We use lockers, right? So we go around from ride to ride. We always get the all ride locker pass because we have like camera equipment and stuff with us. So we like to just put it in the locker, and it just makes it easier. You just board your train, and you're ready to go. But these lockers, these locker machines were broken. Every time I put the code in, it wouldn't work properly. We couldn't get the lockers to unlock. We're like, you know what? I don't even really necessarily want to mess with it again. I have my stuff stuck in there, and I waste an hour on getting some employee out here to fix it for us. So it was not a reason that I realized that maybe we shouldn't ride it again. But in hindsight, I kind of wish we ridden it again because in the past, Rougarou was actually a top 5 at Cedar Point for me.
Yeah.
I will say
it was my number 3 anymore, behind
in the past,
Maverick and Magnum.
It really was that high.
And then Gatekeeper was 4.
Now I'm thinking back. Yeah, now I'm thinking back to a ride on it yesterday. I'm like, oh man, I did like it though. I really did enjoy the ride on it. But there was just the pressure of getting a lot more stuff in because it just
spent so much of our trip closed that it was not. It wasn't convenient to get back there and do it again. But we did have a good ride on it.
If it had been open on day 1, we would have ridden it a couple times for sure.
Absolutely.
For like at least a couple times for sure. It just didn't fit in. At that point on day 2, it was like, all right, there's just.
And I will say there's some rides that have been in the park this whole time that have pulled ahead in my personal interest. Like Millennium Force and Raptor have both trended up a lot. Even Gatekeeper, I would say all 3 of those rides I would rank over Rougarou, whereas in 2020 I would not have.
So especially because we're getting to a lengthy episode now. I mean, I'm ready to fly into our top fives and call it a day.
And also, I have one last show and tell that I'll save at the very end.
Oh my God! Yes. Okay. So we'll end the episode with that in video format for for social media purposes. So for my top five, I think. Oh my God, maybe you should go first. I'm still figuring mine out.
My top five, I think fluid. I would comfortably say, without overthinking it, Millennium Force 5, Magnum is 4. And the reason why I would put Maverick over Magnum is just because Maverick is a much more rewritable ride. Magnum is I think, more exciting, but just so taxing and so rough on the body. So Magnum would be 4th for me. Maverick would be 2. Or would be 3. Top Thrill 2 is 2nd place. And then Steel Vengeance oh my God. Shocker. Steel Vengeance. No. Siren's Curse is my number 1 there. And not just because I love Vekoma and because I just think they're the best. I wouldn't, after our first Siren's Curse ride, I felt like, oh, maybe this won't be my favorite by the end of the trip. But after a few rides, I was like, no, it really earns it. Like, it earns its keep. I hypothesized that it would be my favorite for the reasons that it ended up being my favorite. As someone, who I felt like was familiar with a lot of Cedar Point's rides, the only wild card was Top Thrill 2, because it was the only other experience besides Siren's Curse where I felt like I didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like, well, what if I show up there and Top Thrill 2, knocks my socks off, and I have to begrudgingly admit that that's my favorite right there. And it came close. It was close. By the end of day 1, it was like, oh, maybe Top Thrill 2 is my favorite. But I have to give it to Siren's Curse. I think you brought up a good point about how, like, Siren's Curse may not be the best example of a next generation Vekoma, whereas Top Thrill 2 is so off the wall and one of a kind and unique that, like, you kind of have to give it to that ride. Which is why I would say that it's probably still objectively the best ride at the park, maybe like the most spectacular, like the can't miss signature Cedar Point experience at that park, especially as we may start to see more tilt coasters being built around. Siren's Curse might not have the same novelty that it does today, whereas Top Thrill 2 is always probably going to be incredibly unique forever. But for now, I would say Siren's Curse is my number 1 in the park.
So for me, oh my God, I still can't make up my mind. I think it may be, oh my God, it is so difficult. I think it may be Top Thrill 2 as my number 1.
I know your top 3 is Gatekeeper, Siren's Curse, and Top Thrill 2.
Followed by Siren's Curse, followed by Millennium, followed by Maverick.
No Magnum?
And it pains me to not have Magnum in there. And it pains me. And if our only ride on Maverick would have been on day 1, I would have been like, okay, Magnum's probably my number 1, number 5. But then my ride on Maverick the second day were really good too. I hate this. I hate that there's so many good rides.
That's fair. I'll give it to you. Because like Gatekeeper's
top
awesome.
5 is difficult.
Gatekeeper would be.
It used to be pretty obvious for me.
My number 7. Because I think I would take Raptor over it. Because Raptor is so
too much
special, and like it feels like this little old man.
I still take Rougarou over Raptor.
Really? No.
Yeah. I don't even think Raptor's in my top 8, in my top 7.
If we're counting rides that aren't there anymore, Wicked Twister ranked really high for me.
Oh, Wicked Twister was top 3 for
ride.
me. Especially back row.
Oh my God, back row.
That's good.
The front row of the last car on Wicked Twister, and you come up that rear twist spike the second time, and you watch the cars in front of you violently articulate for the twist. Oh my God, that was so fun. That was such a great ride. But yeah, I would Rougarou, I would say Raptor, Gatekeeper, and Rougarou are pretty close, but I would comfortably rank Raptor 6th, and then Gatekeeper 7th, and then Rougarou down to 8.
Okay, fair enough. So Alex has one final photo to show.
Speaking of Magnum, we took a very funny and flattering picture of us of our first Magnum ride of the visit. Where we were
supposed to have a digital one, but we lost the receipt for the digital
luckily
copy.
I've got a scanner right here, so we can make a digital version of this. But here we are for everyone playing at home, very much enjoying our ride on Magnum. As you can see, I'm like double bracing myself. I've got one hand on the handlebar and one on the lap bar. You're, catching flies. I can't believe how big your mouth opens, Sean. I'm realizing this more now looking at this picture.
I mean, it was insane. We were just yelling out.
It's quite the skill. And then it's like this couple behind us are just like having a fun time.
Normally,
there's like normal people enjoying their ride normally, and then they have us.
But yeah, that was, I think, maybe even the most memorable.
That was one of the most memorable experiences.
Front row on Magnum. Yeah.
Like, to her credit.
But yeah, overall, we had a great visit. And even though operationally the park wasn't very strong and the park was in that regard, I think our past visits have been much better. But I think I just enjoy the rides there more now. I think there's a reflection. Some of these rides, 5 years is a long time, admittedly. I think a lot of these rides have just aged nicely, and now with like a new range of 5 years of a bunch of new kinds of roller coasters and B&M's new roller coasters, Tacoma's new roller coasters, Intamin's new roller coasters. Now there's a sort of appreciation coming from me for the stuff there that is much more historical, much more significant, is much more unique than I've given it credit for, and with much more new rides and much more experience under my belt. Even though when we went to Cedar Point, I was already at my last Cedar Point visit, I was already at 600 or 700 coasters. But then now, I still, I just appreciate Cedar Point more now.
I think there's two major things that happened. One, Siren's Curse, and two, B&M.
Top Thrill 2?
No, I mean, Top Thrill Dragster, the OG, was also very impressive. They replaced one impressive ride with another impressive ride. And then like Wild Mouse was kind of the replacement for Wicked Twister, which is obviously like kind of an unfortunate trade down, but it's like, Wicked Twister, I get it. Like it made sense why Wicked Twister was retired when it was. But I think the two things that have put Cedar Point's collection in perspective for me is like building Siren's Curse is obviously like for someone like us, that's like best case scenario, and B&M shitting the bed. And like all new B&M coasters being on a probational period where like you don't know if it's going to even be tolerable to ride until after you've ridden it.
Yeah, which is so wild to think of that.
I used to think that Valraven was a bad example of a B&M until I rode Rapterra and Penguin Trek, and like reviews for Wrath of Rakshasa are dreadful. And I'm like, oh my God, like we actually still had it pretty good when we were riding some of these B&Ms that were kind of mediocre. So rides like Raptor and Valraven have accrued a lot of value for me now that we're looking at this era where B&M coasters are kind of taking the piss. So those two things, those two aspects of Cedar Point's ride lineup in 2025 have really improved my overall opinion of their lineup pretty dramatically.
I would agree. I think
even without Wicked Twister, even losing Wicked Twister,
I guess
I feel like it's trended up.
Yeah, but then we lost Wicked Twister, but we got a beautifully, actually nice themed area.
Yeah, we got a really nice. God, that area is so nice.
And they have so many great flat rides in this park.
And Wild Mouse is super cute.
Yeah, I guess overall, I am a certified Cedar Point fanboy now.
Yeah.
And with that, guys, leave us a review on wherever you're listening. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we really appreciate it. Make sure to follow us on social media. We have a bunch of episodes live, and last week we talked about California's Great America and what the future may actually hold for that park, if there's a future. That's a great episode to listen to. And we'll catch you guys next week. We have lots of more episodes coming up. We got King's Dominion we still got to do. We still have Busch Gardens Williamsburg got to do. A couple UK parks. So the season is far from over. We do appreciate you guys sticking with us through some of these unexpected breaks, because for work right now, this is like high time season. Like we're gone a lot. I have in fact not even been in Orlando in like over a month. So right now is the time that we're just traveling, working, and sometimes our schedules don't line up as well. So I'm just happy we got this episode out. So we appreciate you guys sticking with us in the weeks that we don't have episodes, even though we do plan on having them. So thanks for that. But we do plan on being back next week with another episode. And for now, that's a goodbye. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.